From the choreographer of the critically acclaimed Frankenstein, the Joffrey Ballet presents the U.S. premiere of Liam Scarlett's Carmen, a breathtaking ballet filled with desire, passion, and betrayal. This adaptation of the famous opera pulsates with life and reveals the timeless tale of a woman who dares to live on her own terms. See the Joffrey Ballet's Carmen now through September 28th at Lyric Opera House. Tickets available at joffrey.org. There's still time to take advantage of Window Nation's most popular offer. When you buy 2 windows this month, you're going to get 2 for free. You don't want to wait when it comes to replacing old drafty windows if you can. Plus, Window Nation installation crews finish the job in a day or less so you can get back to your daily life with little interruption. And you know that your home is protected from fall and winter weather. This sale ends September 30th, so schedule a fast free estimate now with the pros at Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, how is Chicago going to close a $1 billion budget gap? Is the city council going to approve a $90 million police violence settlement? And have y'all heard about the newest grocery store in Austin? We've got all these stories and more. It's Friday, September 19th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We've got 2 amazing City Hall reporters in the building with us today from the Tribe, Tonya Hill. Tonya, good to see you, my friend.
Good morning. Good to see you, too.
We've also got the Tribune's AD Quigg in the building. Honestly, one of the coolest names to say out loud. Like, do you feel cool? Like your name is like 2 letters, AD. Like, people, what's up, AD?
It is punchier, and ever since there was an AD on Love Is Blind, it's really blown up. I think people are going for it.
If you are new to CityCast Chicago, welcome. Every single Friday, we bring in these amazing people to break down some of the biggest stories happening in and around our city every single week. But before we jump into those stories, yesterday we published a part 2 of some of our favorite tacos in the city. I think between yesterday's episode and our part 1 in 2024, we've got nearly 20 spots on the list, but we can always add more and more. So I wanted to get y'all contributions. Tony, I'm gonna start with you. Do you got a favorite taco spot in the city that you want to add to our list?
I would add Los Tacos, and I think that's South Chicago.
Okay.
It's right on like 87th and Commercial, and conveniently located next door is it's a 420 place. So
they knew what they was doing, you saying.
Right. So the taco place is there first. But yeah, I particularly go there when I'm looking for birria. So that's where I like to get it from.
So Los Tacos and desserts. AD, over to you. What's a taco spot you want to put us on?
Mine is, I think, partially informed by the fact that I think it's going to go away soon. El Palmar on Irving Park and Sheridan. Right next to Holiday Club. That whole building is going to get redeveloped into apartments. And I'm very scared that Palmar will not come back because they have very good pastor, but also really good ceviche. So if Palmar goes away, I'm going to have to go all the way up to Carmela's, which is not a huge deal because they also have really good everything, basically, but really good pastor in particular. We're just blessed. We're blessed with so many good taco places that
we are, and we take them for granted. Like, damn, the fact that I'm learning about a spot right now that some have voted as some of the best Latin American food in Chicago, as it may be closing down, breaks my goddamn heart. But that means I need to get over there sooner rather than later.
Get that ceviche.
Luckily, neither of those spots ended up on one of our lists, and none of our readers or listeners suggested it. And so, as always, we are consistently being introduced to new places, but we're going to throw those on the list. Make sure you are tapped into chicago.citycast.fm so you can listen to those episodes and you can find those best food and drink lists when we publish them. All right, let's get into the thing we brought y'all in here to do today. AD, City Council hasn't had a full meeting since July, but committees and working groups have been in and out of numerous meetings in preparation for this fall's tense budget season. Chicago is staring down a $1.15 billion budget gap, which is not It's not really news to people who've been paying attention. The council will be back next week in full, but AD, it looks like we have got our first look at proposals for balancing the budget coming out of the mayor's working group, which he put together last April. Can you catch us up? What's on the table? What's not on the table?
It's a very long list of proposals. So their entire reason for getting together was basically to propose as many options as they could come up with and reach consensus on for the mayor and city council to kind of pick and choose from. And because they were consensus ideas, there were not any of these like gigantic, bold proposals that you might have heard from progressive groups or conservative groups. Like there are some folks in conservative spheres who were like, we should be considering bankruptcy, which we can't do right now.
I actually did see someone write that piece. You talk about the more progressive proposal. So that sounds like getting rid of some TIF districts, taking a realistic look at the police budget and chopping that thing down in some key points. Those were not included in this 80-page report.
No, there were some tweaks to the Chicago Police Department budget. They consistently go over budget for overtime spending and, of course, for settlements, which we're going to talk about. But there was no big. They only had a few weeks. They had like 10 weeks to come up with all this stuff. So they did get into some nitty gritty, but did not do like a whole allocation analysis, for example, saying, do we have too many cops here or there? Could we they did suggest civilianizing more positions, but nothing really specific. They weren't saying this district has too many, this district has too few, we should be moving them around, or we should just take one big chop and say 10% off. The big other suggestion that could impact CPD's budget, because they are such a gigantic part of the city's budget overall, such a huge part of the city's workforce, is vacancy freeze. So a lot of the current vacancies across the city or at the Chicago Police Department, if they instituted a permanent freeze across city departments, I think the biggest impact would be on the Chicago Police Department. So there were kind of sideways ways into cutting CPD's budget, but not like one grand proposal. For the most part, it was small potatoes, as I called it, in terms of like smaller increases to fines and fees to kind of keep up with inflation. A lot of the reason that revenues have not kept pace with expenditures is because like a lot of our taxes and fees have stayed flat for a really long time. One of the biggest ones is our garbage fee. So it's $9.50 a month. It's been $9.50 a month for a while, which is a lot lower than a lot of other places. It doesn't really account for the full cost of picking up trash, like how much it costs the city to actually pick up trash. So one of like the big recommendations was we should increase garbage fees. You asked about how realistic some of these are to get through the city council. One of the ones that a lot of members of city council hate, even more than raising property taxes, is raising garbage fees.
They say it could generate is somewhere between, and you wrote this, 20 million and 300 million. 80, that's a big goddamn gap. So when you're talking about like such a big range, what would that look like in terms of the fee raise?
So it depends on how much they want to raise the fee, right? So if they wanted to do like a smaller phased in increase, which is one of the recommendations, it's like, don't whack people with this all at once. Let's try to phase it in and work it up slowly to what the actual cost might be. It also would factor in, do we maintain or maybe increase or change discount rates? So for seniors or low-income people, we could cut the rate for them to make this a little bit more easily tolerable. So that's the reason for the big range. If they like boosted it up to what some of our sister cities or like peer cities charge for trash collection, that's where you get that $300 million. But council just wouldn't do it.
Okay, so we've talked garbage being on the table, but being highly unlikely. Not really taking a big smack at the police budget. The hiring freeze potentially could bring in 144 to 162, according to some estimates. What else are they looking at?
They proposed increasing the property tax to match the rate of inflation, which the mayor immediately said, I don't want to do that.
I would like to get elected for a second term.
Yes. Previously, under Mayor Lori Lightfoot, we raised to the rate of inflation. Her argument, which a lot of aldermen grudgingly agreed with at the time, was that property taxes needed to be predictable. And having property taxes go up as much as your groceries or other costs in your life made sense. Homeowners would know what to look out for. Businesses would know what to plan for. But as we know, the max was like 5% or the rate of inflation. So they weren't going to be like, sorry, inflation's gone up 11%, so have your property taxes. But as we know, Mayor Brandon Johnson ran on, I will not, read my lips, I will not raise property taxes. And he has stuck to that, although last year, obviously, he floated a property tax increase, and that got 50 to nothing shot down uniformly by the city council. I am and Tony, I want to know what you think. Like, do you think the size of this gap and all of the one-time measures that are basically not available again, how much do you think that changes the calculus of how council is thinking about what they're willing to do?
Last year, there was it didn't seem like there were as many ideas until the very last minute about things that we could be doing. You know, it was also interesting to see you brought up the police budget, how it kind of seemed like people that you wouldn't expect in city council to kind of say, hey, yeah, that is something we should consider, vacancies. You know, this group of sub-alders, including Alderman O'Reilly, for instance, saying, you know, that is like a valid thing. So I would be interested in hearing more alternatives about how we can raise revenue without it necessarily being a property tax increase. But I was also curious from your point of view, are these pre-budget hearings being well attended?
No. Even by me, and I have to cover county, but I also help cover city. Even on that first day, which is like usually the big day, because you could talk directly to the chief financial officer and the budget director and ask direct questions. Like even by the end of that day, it had trailed off by so much that I was like, where are all these people who are so upset about this budget? I think part of that is like, all right, we're very close to the actual budget proposal as it is. Let's wait till that actually comes out before we really start grilling people. But yeah, I if I were a strategic alderman, I would be attending all of these and asking for requests through the chair. So like, give me these numbers that I want now so that I have them in my hands when the actual budget is here and I don't have to waste time asking for them in October or November. I can have them now. And then when you show up again in October and November, I could say, let's cut it, or let's invest more in that, or what the heck is going on here? But it's just me. I'm not an alderman.
So like you said, there's a lot of suggestions on the table, extending the city's grocery tax, maybe some pension bailouts. There are some small things like fines and fees for online tickets, for food and packaging. Adi, I guess my final question to you is, you know, this number has been thrown around a lot, and we know there are a ton of budget issues at the state, city, transit, education, at all these different levels. How big is a $1.15 billion gap in the grand scheme for a city as large as Chicago with an $18 billion budget?
We've had so many years of really big structural gaps that it's not a surprise. So while it is urgent and it is large, it is expected. So people are aware that the house is on fire. It's not like, oh no, we have to call the fire department like right away. It's like the fire department is fully aware. What is making this year, and I've said this like several years because it's always been the case, what is making it more urgent is that there are fewer tricks up respective sleeves. Like we've done a lot of the one-time stuff to an extent. We're going to continue doing the one-time stuff. I'm sure we're going to have a huge TIF surplus that's going to make a big cut out of this. Every year feels like the end of the road. It's like, this is the one where they're going to have to do something drastic. But yeah, I think aldermen, and what Mayor Brennan Johnson did smartly is he's been saying this $1 billion number for several months. Like he's been preparing people for this. This is like familiar territory for the Chicago City Council. Like the structural budget has been a problem for a long time.
Look, you know it. I know it. I say it all the time. Chicago is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And a major reason why is because we got some of the most amazing architecture on the planet. And if you've ever seen one of our many magnificent buildings and thought, I wonder what the story behind that is, or even I wonder what it's like inside, then I got the perfect event for you. Open House Chicago from the Chicago Architecture Center is back, y'all. October 18th and 19th is one of the city's largest free festivals, giving you behind the scenes access to more than 200 sites across dozens of neighborhoods. I'm talking iconic skyscrapers, sacred spaces, historic buildings, artist hangouts, these steel, limestone, concrete, glass masterpieces, some places that are usually closed to the public. You can finally step inside a building you've always passed or see the city from a whole new angle and a part of town you ain't never been to. And the best part, no tickets required. You can just pull up and start exploring. Visit openhousechicago.org to see the full site list. Plus, they got maps so you can plan your whole weekend. Mark your calendar, October 18th and 19th, and experience Chicago like never before at openhousechicago.org. If you're looking for a new career, I want you to pause for a second. What exactly are you looking for? Maybe it's something that's flexible, that works on your time, something where you can use those people skills, your creativity to work with and connect others. Something where you can make an impact. If the answer is yes, then maybe you should consider real estate. Realtors not only help people buy and sell homes, but navigate Chicago's rental market. They help people find the next great location to realize the small business dreams, which means you can help people find stability, put down roots, grow something in their neighborhoods. Plus, you get to set your own schedule, choose who you work with, explore different parts of the city. So if real estate is for you, here's how to get started. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com today to schedule your free career consultation. That's realtorsrealestateschool.com. Tonya, over to you. As we talk about $1 billion budget gap, we are also looking at the city's finance committee approving yet another police misconduct settlement, which, according to WTTW and our colleague Heather Sharon, the city has already paid out triple its police misconduct budget in the first 9 months of 2025. And that number is likely to go up with this new settlement. Can you kind of catch us up on what the City Council's Finance Committee voted on and remind us who is disgraced police officer Sergeant Ronald Watts?
City Council Finance Committee approved a $90 million proposed settlement for lawsuits tied to ex-CPD Sergeant Ronald Watts. He resigned from the force in 2012 before pleading guilty to FBI extortion. There was a sting operation, and him and another officer were accused of stealing money from somebody who was in the midst of a sting. So
they were an FBI informant.
Right, they were an FBI informant. And something that's that Cook County, or former Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, said when we spoke to her back in 2021, she talked about how residents in the Ida B. Wells housing complex were afraid of him, afraid that he plant drugs on them, afraid that he plant guns on them. So while I'm not up to speed on every single one of those, and this is 176 lawsuits, by the way, and I believe almost 200 plaintiffs. So just the sheer amount of torture, lost wages, just everything that goes into play with incarceration and how this has impacted people. I talked to a CPD torture survivor, Mark Clements, and he told me plainly, $90 million is really not enough money for all of this. It's really not.
It means payouts between $150,000 and $3 million for each of the people.
So they have a formula. So depending on how long you were incarcerated and the length of the arrest. But I will say I was very surprised to hear this news come from the city's corporation council. Last fall, I went to a meeting with a civil rights attorney, Andrew Stroth, and Alderman Gil Villegas was also part of that meeting. And they talked about how the city's law department is paying so much money to represent police officers in these types of lawsuits, these civil rights lawsuits, and the city would be better suited to just settle these cases before they're even going to court because they know they can't win. So Andrew Stroth's report from the Truth, and Justice, his organization, his nonprofit, basically found that the city is like nearly inching toward that $1 billion mark around litigating these types of cases. So, so I really was surprised as well to hear the responses from some of the city council finance committee folks. Everyone across both sides of, thought was saying that this was a great thing for the city, that we're saving money right now instead of, as you pointed to earlier, the city maybe over the next years having to spend between $300 and $500 million in court. And yeah, like we're talking about the budget. So as Mark pointed out to me, yes, this is a good step for people who were caught up in the system, who had said for years that, these things had happened to them and no one believed them. But at the same time, as a taxpayer, we're having to foot the bill for this. And it's unfair,
According to that same WTTW analysis, since 2019, Chicago taxpayers have spent at least $700 million to resolve police misconduct and violence lawsuits. And a story like this, I mean, it pisses you off in 1,000 different ways. And I think money, for most of us, is at the very bottom of that, right? It is absolutely horrendous that the city of Chicago is having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars essentially every year on these police violence cases. I mean, the total number of convictions in juvenile adjudications connected to Watts and his team was over 220. Collectively, the wrongful prosecutions cost 183 people sentences of a combined 460 years, y'all. And that's not including pretrial detention, plus 57 probation and 10 boot camp sentences. As you pointed out, Tonya, this ruined people's lives. People lost jobs, lost families, lost connections, and deep personal relationships. People had to sit behind bars and take plea deals as they had family members pass away. People lost their children to the system. People lost access to resources and benefits. Like, it isn't enough to say, we've paid out millions and millions of dollars to this point, that we want to pay out millions more, because a lot of this story it's less about the city caring about these hundreds and hundreds of people who were impacted, who had their lives changed forever. It's them, like we're talking about, this is a budget conversation for the city, that, this could save us hundreds of millions of dollars in the long run, while Ronald Watts is living in Arizona. The only reason this ring was discovered is because he stepped on the FBI's toes. And after that conviction, the city didn't even immediately move to look at all of these other cases. It took a victim of him and his team's crimes to continue to pursue this for years after he stepped down in 2012. It wasn't even until 2016 that this made it to the state's attorney's office. And so, as much as I would hope that this can help a lot of these families, these individuals move forward, the truth is, as long as this man is able to just kind of sit up, kind of in retirement
with a pension,
and there's no amount of money, I imagine, will ever wipe this stain off of the city of Chicago.
Yeah, and I just want to add to just the scope of this that I find is really interesting. Corporation Counsel Mary Richardson Laurie said all the judges within this district had a Ronald Watts lawsuit on their docket. So just that is, she was like, I've never seen anything like this where every single judge has some sort of Ronald Watts lawsuit. So this is like freeing those judges of those cases, but just like the sheer magnitude of it all, like how many cases were before judges in this district, in our state around this issue.
Every single week, we also bring in these amazing voices to shed some light on some stories that maybe aren't on the front pages this week. And AD, up top, we discussed the pending budget crisis the city is facing. But as our listeners are probably fully aware, City Hall isn't the only one staring down a financial conundrum. Regional Transit still doesn't have an official plan to address a $700 million budget gap that they themselves. And this is something that has to be dealt with at the state level. What's the latest?
So the RTA, the Regional Transit Authority, basically came back to transit agencies under its umbrella and said, listen, we got to make real the impact of us not solving this budget crisis. We need to tell people exactly what bus and train lines are going to be cut or affected or brought to curfew. Like imagine a 10 p.m. curfew on a bus route or a train that you rely on as a worker. We need to make this real for people. So come back to us and tell us the list of what you're going to cut if we don't get a deal on this out of Springfield. I so deeply rely on, and so many people in Chicago do, on just transit being there and available. And to a point where maybe we take it for granted and we learned how much, how disruptive consistency can affect our lives. Like we saw in COVID, ghost buses, ghost trains. How much did that screw up your life during COVID when everything was screwed up? Imagine 40 or 60% cuts to service permanently. So I think from a lobbying standpoint, this is like a very good idea for all the transit agencies to do. It will remind riders the stakes here and maybe get riders to spur folks in Springfield to finally come up with a deal to rescue these transit agencies. I think there's a hope and expectation that Springfield will act because of how drastic the consequences of these cuts will be. They got kind of close in last session. They are expected to and hoped to pull this off during veto session, which starts on October 14th. So I think all of this is kind of like the grand finale build up. Springfield has a habit of like waiting until the very, very last moment to fix something. So I think the hope is that like this panic kind of gets drummed up before October. But if you're a bus, transit, train, pace, anything rider, I would be paying very close attention to this and getting in touch with your representative on these various boards to express how real this might be for you. Sometimes I just imagine if the red line wasn't 24 hours, what I would do. I'll be very interested to see what kind of the final deal is and what these various transit agencies agreed to just to not have these cuts. We've already seen the RTA has had to like front $74 million to CTA because the CTA is expected to fall off that cliff Looney Tunes style first. It's urgent. And there are people in Springfield who care and are trying, but when you have like kind of three Goliath transit agencies all kind of vying for power here, it's a complicating factor.
And you got folks in the suburbs who don't agree with the proposed configurations, like the new regional transit authority, arguing that it really gives more power, more authority to the city of Chicago. And so you got a lot of power brokers in here jostling for their piece of the pie. Tonya, over to you. A new grocery store in Austin, 5 years in the making, is set to host its grand opening next week. Some people might be familiar with the 40 Acres Fresh Market. They started up as a kind of food delivery service pop-up in farmers markets, but now they are officially brick and mortar. Catch us up. Talk to us a little bit about their journey and ways they're hoping to kind of grow the business.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for this. As you know, Austin and like much of the South Side neighborhoods, there is a lack of grocery stores. So I see this as a great addition to the neighborhood. And like you said, it's been 5 years in the making. But I wanted to talk about this specifically because so far the sales are not quite meeting projections. And the owner, and this is a Black woman-owned grocery store, by the way, the owner, there was a community meeting last week, I should say. And yeah, they were discussing ways to meet those projections. And one of them would be by selling liquor. So it seems like Alderman Taliaferro, whose ward the store is in, is supportive of that idea of being able to relax.
There's like a ban in
There's like a ban
area
or something in that corridor. So he seems okay with a temporary lapse on that in order to generate some sales. So I think that's a good step that you have the support of the local alderman with that. But yeah, I have not yet been there myself, but I've been seeing the store on social media and it just looks really great. It looks really great. So I'm hoping that they're able to meet their sales and get the business they need to sustain itself. But this is also the product of investment. A city grant, I believe they received a city grant and also other funding sources. But yeah, this is what we want to see. The city investing in a small business for an obvious, very much needed grocery store. And I want to see it, have success.
Yeah. I love this story for a number of reasons. One, the journey over the last almost 10 years to go from doing pop-ups throughout the pandemic, being a resource for people to get fresh produce directly to their door, right? We've seen these type of pop-ups happen in and around the city over the last few years. But it also is a reminder of an episode we did some time ago talking about alternatives to the chain grocery stores and how the proliferation of farmers markets is great and these local grocery stores is amazing. But the time it takes to open one of these things and to get it moving, it's a lot. And so when we have these conversations about grocery stores leaving a neighborhood, we really focus in on the long-term impacts of not only losing a grocery store, but what it may mean to replace that. It could take years and years. Austin, North Lawndale, Garfield Park, they've watched Aldi leave, right? We've seen Whole Foods disappear. We've seen Walgreens and CVS shutting down, places that people rely on. And so it's really important, not only for 40 Acres and Fresh Market to succeed as this story of a small business owner, shout out to Liz, but to succeed as a resource for an entire community that has had to watch businesses like this pack up and leave quite abruptly. And so there is some concern from neighbors, about, what would it mean to have another place selling liquor in the neighborhood? But it does seem like Liz, the alderperson, is trying to take those concerns in, talk about it not taking up too much space inside of the grocery store and accounting for maybe just about 8% of their overall sales. But like you said, Tonya, that'll be crucial to them making their weekly and monthly goals. And so this is a suggestion to listeners, whether you live close by or not. If you got some time, take a trip over to 40 Acres Fresh Market in Austin. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and kidney cancer is one of the most common types of childhood cancer. The Kidney Cancer Association is committed to creating awareness and raising funds for research to find a cure through Chalk Your Walk. Basically, you chalk some art on the pavement, maybe in your driveway or on the sidewalk outside your apartment. Include chalkyourwalk.org on your drawing, then post photos of your art on social media and tag Kidney Cancer Association. Seriously, you can draw anything, something that brings you joy or an encouraging message, and just tag Kidney Cancer Association. Learn more or donate directly at chalkyourwalk.org. We end every episode of CityCast Chicago pretty much the same exact way, begging you to bring your ass back here for the next episode. But before we do that, some good news. 80, what's your good news for CityCast Chicago today?
The Chicago River. I am attending a wedding of a friend this weekend and was having a manicure at a place called 7 a.m. Nails, and it overlooks Wacker and the river, and I was just staring lovingly at the river for like a full hour. And then this week I saw Mac Lederman had a great story about the South Fork of the South Branch of the Chicago River, which we all know as Bubbly Creek, which is such like a gross name for a place that represents how gross historically it has been. That thing was just like full of blood and carcasses and God knows what for forever. Ooh. But now Park number 571, which needs a proper name, I would argue, is close to wrapping up a $500,000 makeover. They have 2 fishing stations, a nature play space. There is talk of the park expanding. It used to be like a People's Gas facility, and they've been doing a lot of environmental remediation. And all of the wonderful things that you hope will happen when environmental remediation happens. My sister's helps with environmental remediation, so it's just like a thing we talk about a lot. The fish are coming back. Other animals are coming back. That like unexpectedly quickly. It's just a wonderful local, things can go right when, like Tony said, government invests in a thing. Like this was EPA money, this was city money, private. I think People's Gas probably helped with some of this. They're probably required to help with some of this. But like the river is so much better than it used to be that we are back for the first time in nearly 100 years having the river swim on Sunday. Like it's good news. It's a good story.
I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty wild. If you would have told me as a kid that,
yes.
And again, I didn't know the long history. I didn't know that this is a thing. Like they had hosted open swims after they reversed the river, which I can only imagine was not the best state and does not compare to where the river is now. But you couldn't have told Kid Kobe that he was going to be watching people like choose to do like a massive swim event in the river. I don't know, maybe my stereotypes about the river were just so ingrained at that point, but it is really good to see how many different parts of it have developed.
It was real. Like, that's not a stereotype. It was bad. Like,
no, it was really bad. I remember going there in 6th grade for a field trip and being like, why are we here? And I've just been so fascinated, like you were saying, AD, so fascinated with all the development that's come down there, because none of that existed like in the 2000s. It was not it was not looking like that. So it is become really a beautiful destination for people. I really like what's being done there.
If you want to participate in a canoeing clean on Bubbly Creek this Saturday, the Chicago Friends of the River are hosting an event from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Eleanor Street Boathouse. They've got a bunch of other conservation and learning events that you could check out. I will drop a link in the show notes. Shout out to the Chicago River. Tonya, over to you. What is your good news for us today?
You know, as India Ari once said, it's the little things and the joy they bring.
I love that.
So my good news is that Rainbow Cone, for I don't know how long, has brought back Black Walnut. I was deeply devastated by them taking away Black Walnut with no notice, actually. Just wanted some Black Walnut one day. I think this was last year, and they were like, we don't sell that anymore. And I was just like, what? Like, why would you do that?
Can you describe the flavor?
It's kind of similar. It's not the same as butter pecan. It is not. But it's a cousin. It's a cousin. I think I like it because of my mother, and my mother got it from my grandfather. So it's like it's a Black thing, I would say. Black walnut is a Black thing. We enjoy butter pecan and Black walnut, and it's just very hard to find. So Baskin Robbins has it, but only specific ones carry it. Yeah, it's so weird. So it's like, and I haven't really tried a lot of store brands that have it in like the freezer section, but it's a very hard to find ice cream flavor. And yeah, it's just, it is similar to butter pecan, but it's not the same, because that's what they tried to tell me. Oh yeah, we have butter pecan. I'm like, well, that's not the same thing.
I've never had Black Walnut, so I need to add that to the list. So we got great ice cream from Rainbow Cone. We got the Chicago River Swim, first time in nearly 100 years that they actually allowing people to get up in there and waddle around. Won't be me. And then, so I feel like we need some like dinner in there. We need like a good meal in there. And so I'm going to fill the gap with the 9th annual Jerk Seafood and Vegan Festival going down at Union Park this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, from 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. I've been trying to put together a Chicago like Caribbean and jerk episode for a while. It's one of the things Chicago does very well and will go above and beyond to pretty much throw jerk sauce on anything, like a jerk pizza puff, jerk pizza, jerk burrito. And so anywhere where they celebrating good Caribbean food, I'm game for it. And so I will drop a link in the show notes. And luckily that's only $10. And so, you know, you can go hang out at the Riverwalk, walk over to Union Park or catch the train over to Union Park, get you some jerk food, and then stop by Rainbow Cone, pick up that Black Walnut. I don't know. That sounds like a hell of a weekend day to me. You know, one way you ain't stressing about the pending budget crisis at every level of city government. You know, sounds like a good dissociative weekend. I want to thank our fantastic guests and amazing friends for always making time for CityCast Chicago. From the Tribe, award-winning reporter Tonya Hill. Always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And from the Tribune, one of City Hall's best reporters, AD Quigg. Thank you so much for making time, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
If you love the work that we do, then please share us with your friends and family. And if you got it like that, consider becoming a CityCast Chicago neighbor. That's our membership program. In a little bit, we're going to be starting our fall membership campaign. It's going to be this window of about a week and a half where if you sign up, you're going to get access not only to the ad-free listening, the members-only events, one of which I think is coming up very early in October, but every week we're going to send you an email with some of our favorite things going down in the city. But hey, you can sign up whenever you want. If you love the podcast, if you love the newsletter, if you're getting any value out of this work that we've been doing for the last 4+ years, then consider signing up to becoming one of our neighbors. Go ahead and join the neighborhood for either $10 a month or $100 a year. The people you can thank for this podcast and newsletter, you got our executive producer, Simone Alisea, our producer, Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, our social media manager, Rick Homuth. This is the daily team, of course, including myself. I also want to give a huge shout out to the people who make the music we love, including Sam Thousand, all the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. You know, even if you ain't gonna throw us a little bit of coin today, again, consider over the next couple of weeks, because in addition to the perks, the forthcoming membership event, the merch that we finna drop, I think we got a whole bunch of reasons. Even if you ain't ready to do all that, please join us. We're gonna be back bright and early next Monday. I've been making that promise for a few years now, and I'm pretty certain I can hold to it once again. So I'll talk to you then. Peace.